Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nicolette Dahlhammer, but I go by Nick or Nikki most of the time. Thank you for tuning in today. You are listening to Evolution by Nikki. This is a lifestyle, mental health, and substance abuse podcast. Please feel free to submit questions or possible topics that you would like me to discuss on future episodes. Before I dive into my first podcast episode, Understanding Trauma, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I am married, I am 33, and I have two beautiful children. I am a teacher by trade, but recently switched career paths and am currently pursuing my master's in substance abuse counseling and also taking classes with the New Jersey Prevention Network to obtain my LCADC, which is the license or certificate to be an alcohol and drug counselor in the state of New Jersey. My new career path began when I became an active member of the Prevention Coalition of Monmouth County's Opioid Task Force in June of 2021. Following that, I began my master's in substance abuse counseling in August of 2021. I was then appointed to the Monmouth County Mental Health Board in September of 2021. Most recently, I was recruited to serve as a board member on the Hazlet Municipal Alliance. I was drawn to this field due to my own personal experiences with mental health and addiction issues. I'd love to know about you guys too. Feel free to comment or reach out and let me know who you are and why you chose to tune in today. As I said earlier, my first podcast is titled Understanding Trauma. And this is where my story begins. Episode 1, Understanding Trauma. They say trauma is the real gateway drug. I believe that. My trauma began in 1988 and has shaped a large majority of my life up until this point. I had no idea that when you live through trauma, your body begins to create responses rather than memories. That is what my life has been for so many years. It has been a series of responses to triggers that have created negative experience and thoughts associated with certain people, places, things, and even ideas. The idea that childhood trauma and ongoing adult trauma could impact you in ways that were not outwardly apparent was mind-boggling, because I had never taken the time to assess my situation for what it was. I was always living in survival mode, and I was always admired for being so strong, despite all of the obstacles that life had thrown at me. But secretly, I dreamed of never being called strong again. I was tired of being strong, tired of fighting, tired of putting on a brave face every single day. The trauma that I endured ruined my life over the course of the last 33 years. In December 2021, I made it my life's mission to never let this trauma ruin another day. Hand on the Bible. Of course, there were some stumbles along the way, but ever since I decided that I was the one in charge of my own story, I stopped being a victim. I finally took control of the narrative, my story. I can't begin to tell you how fucking empowering this part of my mental health journey has been. I have rediscovered my sense of passion. I'm in love with myself, mind, body, and soul. And I am unafraid to share my story. This podcast is not necessarily told in chronological order. Topics are not brought up in the order in which they occurred in my life. Rather, it's more in the order that my mind was able to process the trauma. Once I went to IOP in November of 2019, I discovered how to start processing all of the things that had happened to me in my life. And this podcast is me verbalizing all of the things that IOP and therapy and my psychiatrist over the past 2 years, what they have taught me and where it has brought me to in my life. And I'm very excited to bring you all on this journey with me. I hope that you learn something from what I have to say. And if nothing else, I hope that you learn to empathize with people who they may share your same lived experiences, they may not. But I feel that empathy is something that is lacking from most people these days. Most people can not put themselves in another person's shoes enough to truly feel the pain that that person is going through. But my goal through this podcast is to get you to understand some of that pain and some of that trauma, and not only how it has affected me in my life, but how that same or similar or different trauma affects other people and may even be affecting you. Thank you so much for listening to my first podcast, Understanding Trauma. I look forward to posting again, and I also look forward to seeing your comments and your questions. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again soon.